In New York, on a Friday morning, a quiet insurance salesman named Doyle Gibson, who's been working hard to change his life around and get on the right track, gets up early and meets with his real estate agent, who gives him a tour of a house. During the tour, Doyle starts envisioning the kind of life his estranged wife, Valerie, and his two young sons, Stevie and Danny, will have there, hoping to buy the house and gift it to Valerie, who's planning to take the boys and move to Oregon to start a new life. As a show of his determination to make up for everything and prove his dedication to his family, Doyle then goes to the bank to check on the loan request he had submitted. There, to the utter delight of Doyle, he's informed that everything is in order. Doyle then goes to attend his regular AA meeting, where he shares his progress and meets with his sponsor, who encourages him to keep up his good efforts before heading to work. There, despite struggling to contain his joy, Doyle manages to remain professional and handles a few customers before he excuses himself to go to court for his kid's custody hearing. Then, Doyle starts driving to the court, practicing his speech in which he shares how much his kids mean to him and promises to be a great father to them. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, a young, successful Wall Street lawyer named Gavin, who just became a partner at his father-in-law Stephen's prestigious law firm, heads to a charity event organized by his late philanthropist client Simon Dunn's multi-million-dollar charity foundation. There, Gavin gives a touching speech admiring the great man's contribution to society and showcases his goodwill by interviewing some of the kids who have been helped by the foundation. However, at the end of the event, Gavin is shocked to learn that Simon's granddaughter, Minna, who was once his friend, is mad at him for representing and working for the law firm that wants to take control of the foundation and accuses him of taking advantage of her grandfather at his most vulnerable and convincing him to sign over control of the foundation to the firm, and announces that she will challenge their claim in court. Outraged by this, Gavin returns to the office complaining about Mina's attitude until his bosses Stephen and Walter remind him that they have the necessary documents to prove Simone had signed everything over to them, and all he has to do is ignore Mina's personal feelings and just file the irrefutable documents in court, which will surely get the case closed. Hence, Gavin calms down, compiles everything, and starts driving to court. However, a few minutes later, in an unexpected turn of events, both Gavin and Doyle, who are distracted and preoccupied by their own issues, crash into each other. Shocked by this, the men step out of the car to check on one another and are relieved to see that the other is okay, but soon learn that Doyle's car is not drivable. Remaining calm, Doyle offers to exchange insurance information, which Gavin agrees to until he receives a call reminding him that he's very late to court. Frantic, Gavin changes his mind, quickly takes out his briefcase and everything in it to search for his checkbook, and starts writing Doyle a blank check.
And you just can't get your car fixed to buy lunch?
No. Sorry, I gotta go.
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, better luck next time.
Utterly disappointed, Doyle watches as Gavin drives away, notices that he's dropped a document behind in his rush, and absent-mindedly picks it up while trying to figure out how to make it to court in time. To make matters worse, it starts raining soon after, forcing Doyle to hitchhike there. Meanwhile, Gavin gets to court, where he apologizes and explains what happened, and soon the hearing starts. Mina's lawyer, Thierry, explains that while Simon was alive, his foundation was led by a board of trustees that included Mina, and questions why the board had to be disbanded after Simon's death. Confident in his case, Gavin explains that Simon had signed a power of appointment, appointing Stephen and Walter as sole trustees of the foundation. Then, once the judge silences the outraged Mina, claiming that Gavin had taken advantage of her grandfather, Gavin proceeds to present the necessary documents to support his claims, but is soon shocked to realize that the folder containing the all-important power of appointment is no longer in his briefcase. Terrified by this, Gavin explains the situation, lies to the judge, and informs her that he has the name and contact information of the person who has the file, and assures her that he can recover it.
I'm in no hurry, and I know how bad a person feels after a car crash, right?
Yeah, thanks, Terry.
So, Gavin, when the man whose name you don't know gets out of the meeting that you say he's in, would you call him at the number that you think is in your car so that we can have the document that you assure us gives us the proof that the Senior partners at your law firm really do control the money Simon Dunn left to the children in New York State.
Giving the lawyer the benefit of the doubt, the judge gives Gavin until the end of the day to retrieve the documents and file them, and warns that he and his colleagues may be charged with fraud if he fails to do so. Horrified by the unfortunate turn of events, Gavin rushes out of the courtroom wondering how he can recover the file from the mysterious man, of whom he knows nothing about, and unbeknownst to him, gets on an elevator only a few feet away from Doyle, who rushes into the court, desperately hoping that he still has time to fight for his kids. After a few minutes, Doyle finds his kids, who scold him for being 20 minutes late and inform him that Valerie and her lawyer have already started presenting their case without him. Despite his dread, Doyle shares the good news about the house, comforts the boys, and assures them that he will do whatever it takes to fight for them and give them a better life. Doyle then heads into the courtroom and is devastated to learn that the hearing is concluded and that the judge has awarded sole custody to Valerie.
But I wasn't here.
The court ruled.
No, Valerie, I bought you a house.
It's too late, Your Honor.
No, 20 minutes can't be too late. Valerie, please.
Don't start. Don't talk to him.
Mr. Gibson, would you please approach the bench?
Your Honor.
Horrified by this, Doyle apologizes for being late, tries to explain what happened to him, and shares how he plans to support his family.
This is what I wanted to say. Boys need their fathers. The streets of this world are lonely for boys without their fathers. I have grown and I have recognized those mistakes.
What kind of a house?
It's not a big house and it's not in great shape, but I can fix it. I can make it work, but I'm not asking for that right now. I'm just asking that she not take the boys and move halfway across the world.
However, it all falls on deaf ears, and after the judge allows Valerie and her lawyer to leave, he informs Doyle that there's nothing he can do, as he had already made his decision, and, as if he hadn't heard all his explanation, scolds him for being late for such an important hearing. Utterly shattered, Doyle drags himself out of court, throws his files along with Gavin's in the trash can outside, and, seemingly oblivious to everything around him, starts walking away in the rain. Meanwhile, Gavin sits in his car outside the court, totally overwhelmed by his predicament and wondering what he can solve before he starts driving away. Moments later, to Gavin's utter surprise, he spots Doyle from a distance and, suddenly filled with hope, drives towards him. As soon as he reaches Doyle while still in the car, Gavin introduces himself, learns Doyle's full name, apologizes for the way he behaved earlier, and asks him if he had found the all-important folder, which annoys Doyle, who tries to walk away.
I have no excuse for my behavior, and I'm sorry. I will buy you a new car.
You think I want money?
What I want is my morning back.
Can you give my time back to me? Huh? So she won't move to Oregon. Can you give me that?
I wish I could, man. I wish I could.
Can you really blame him, Gavin? Frustrated by the whole encounter, to Gavin's devastation, Doyle announces that he had thrown out the folder and walks away. Gavin frantically tries to figure out what to do and heads to the law firm. Once there, he goes to his boss's office to give them an update. However, once there, Gavin loses all his nerve to tell them the truth, informs them that he filed the documents with the court and that the hearing went well. Delighted by this news, Stephen congratulates his son-in-law on his great work and offers to give him his old boat as a show of appreciation, which overwhelms Gavin. Meanwhile, Doyle returns to the courthouse to collect the folder from the trash and sends Gavin a taunting fax. Then, still overwhelmed and heartbroken by losing custody of his sons, Doyle goes to a bar despite his sobriety journey. There, Doyle orders a bourbon and just stares at it for minutes on end, desperately urging himself to refrain from ruining his progress and relapsing to his old ways. Moments later, Doyle courageously calls his sponsor, who reminds him of everything he had been through in his journey, which helps him. Doyle then leaves the bourbon, gets a Coke, and spends a few minutes at the bar gathering his thoughts before heading out to call Valerie, who's seemingly delighted by his efforts and the house, and starts reconsidering her move to Oregon. Meanwhile, at the law firm, Gavin receives the fax, which proves that Doyle has the file and freaks out. Desperate to get a handle on the situation, Gavin shares his predicament with his colleague and ex-mistress Michelle, who, after hearing him out and confirming that Gavin had never intended to take advantage of Simon, was convinced by his bosses that this was the best thing for the foundation, and hence was acting completely professionally, comes up with an idea to introduce Gavin to a shady hacker named Finch, who can force Doyle to give up the files.
That means that without this file, you'll be in more trouble than your father-in-law and his partner. You're the attorney of record. You could actually go to jail for this. You need that file.
Reluctantly, Gavin meets with Finch, who quickly hacks into the database to learn as much as he can about Doyle and bankrupts him.
Never done this kind of thing before.
What kind of thing is that?
I just want my file back.
You'll get your file back.
How?
It's like the dog collar that gives a little electric shock when the dog barks.
Now we're torturing an animal? I mean, is there any other way?
Call him up and just be nice to him.
All right, do it.
Once the deed is done, Gavin calls Doyle and leaves a voicemail. Elsewhere, Doyle returns to his office, where he calmly thinks about everything, reconsiders his decision, and prepares to send the file to Gavin until he hears Gavin's voicemail, along with Ron's asking him to come to the bank and discuss the problems with his credit, which infuriates him.
This is Gavin calling. I have something that I want to tell you. All right, I wanted to start over. I gave you a chance. I have just turned off your credit. You can go on and on, pulling your life down around your ear. You can turn it off. Or just give me my file back. Get the credit turned back on, okay? Today.
At the law firm, while Gavin anxiously waits to hear from Doyle, he thinks about the case, questions why Stephen and Walter didn't join him in court for such an important hearing, why Mina suddenly hates him, and starts to realize that there may be something he missed. Hence, determined to get to the bottom of everything and make an informed decision, Gavin speaks to his bosses, admits that he lost the power of appointment, assures them that he's doing everything he can to recover it, and asks them to show him the rest of the file so that he can prepare for his court appearance. Hearing this, Stephen freaks out, scolds Gavin for his irresponsibility, and an argument ensues between the duo.
Hey, who the fuck gives a shit about the struggles of your character? Get out of here, you son of a bitch. If you have to go through every garbage bag in this city, you find that goddamn...
Until Walter calms them both down and offers to print out a new set of power of appointment documents, take a signature from Simon's living will, add it to the new printout, and essentially forge the document. Gavin freaks out at this illegal idea, reminds the men that what they're planning is criminal, and tries to back out until they point out that he got them in the mess.
You screwed this up. You lost a file. Nobody's asking you to get yourself... Making a file is fraud. A new file is fraud. Do you understand that?
We're not inventing. We're not inventing. We're just reproducing something that already exists. Look, Gavin, you take this into the court. Buddy, we can go on with our lives like this never happened.
Having no choice, Gavin promises to think about it more and leaves. Then, determined to get to the bottom of everything, Gavin sets off the fire alarm, which causes chaos and forces everyone out of the building, giving him the best opportunity to break into his boss's office and steal the rest of the file. After joining the rest of his colleagues outside, Gavin reveals to Michelle that Stephen and Walter are abusing the charity foundation and pay themselves millions of dollars out of its income. Devastated by the realization that he was unwittingly helping his bosses with this disgraceful act, Gavin becomes overwhelmed and panics, trying to figure out what to do. Then, as he reflects on everything he had learned that day and all he had done, while discussing this with Michelle, Gavin receives a mysterious call from a messenger.
What? What do you got? Hold out your hand. How many hands you got?
Oh.
It's the file.
No, it's not the power of one.
It's a notice to appear in court. It's a phone number.
Calls it and speaks to Doyle, who warns him that if the problem with his credit is not fixed in half an hour, he will destroy the file forever. Panicked, Gavin calls Finch and begs him to reverse everything as soon as possible.
Please, do something for me here.
Hey,
you gotta do something, man.
I'll do my best.
Moments later, Gavin receives an unexpected call from his wife, Cynthia, who asks him to meet her at a nearby restaurant as soon as possible. Confused by the sudden request, Gavin rushes there, wondering what's going on, finds Cynthia waiting for him, and joins her. Then, to Gavin's utter shock, Cynthia reveals that she knows he's been cheating on her with Mitchell, announces that she won't leave him, and reminds him that they are partners who deeply love one another. Then, as his partner, Cynthia advises him to forge the signature and the power of appointment, and asks him to meet her for a celebratory dinner with their later, which he agrees to do. Elsewhere, Doyle rushes to his bank to work out everything, but is gutted to learn that he's still bankrupt. Then, to Doyle's utter frustration, despite knowing that his credit has clearly been tampered with, Ron apologizes, tells him that there's nothing he can do, and assures him that the problem won't take more than 3 months to figure out, which sends Doyle over the edge. Then, to the shock of everyone, Doyle lashes out and causes a scene at the bank. Feeling like he's failing his beloved family once again, something he swore he would never do, Doyle decides to get back at Gavin, goes to the law firm where Gavin had parked his car, and discreetly unscrews the lug bolts from his wheel. Once finished, Doyle calls Gavin to tell him that his credit is fixed, thanks him, and offers to give him the file. Incredibly relieved by the great news, Gavin apologizes for all the trouble he caused Doyle and agrees with his suggestion to meet at the courthouse so that he can take the document and file it as soon as possible. Gavin leaves the restaurant, rushes back to his office, and as he starts driving to the court, Doyle follows him in a cab. A few minutes later, Gavin is shocked to receive a call from Finch, who tells him that he couldn't manage to reverse Doyle's bankruptcy. As a shocked Gavin tries to process this, the wheel of his car suddenly comes off, causing a car crash, which Doyle watches from a distance. Despite the plan going exactly according to his plan, Doyle is not happy with the disaster he caused and judges himself for risking a man's life over revenge. It seems both Doyle and Gavin hate themselves for fighting a battle they don't know how to end. Doyle then calls Valerie, who asks him to show her the house and goes to meet her. There, Doyle keeps all the chaos he's been through to himself and gives her a tour of the house, which needs a lot of repairs, but Valerie sees the potential and genuinely appreciates his efforts. However, moments later, as if suddenly remembering the fabricated bankruptcy that has ruined his loan process to the shock of Valerie, Doyle gives her his blessing to take the boys to Oregon, which he hopes will be a good fresh start for them. Touched by this, Valerie admits that they should have waited for him before starting the custody hearing, thanks him for letting them go, gives him a farewell hug, and leaves, while Doyle, who's heartbroken, remains frozen for minutes reflecting on what had just occurred. He then drags himself out, takes a cab back to work. Elsewhere, an enraged Gavin, who's luckily only suffered minor injuries in the crash, goes to Danny and Stevie's school, tells the principal that Doyle is planning to kidnap the boys and take them out of the country, and warns her to be ready as he may show up at the school. Moments later, Gavin calls Doyle's office and leaves a fake message informing him that his boys have been in an accident. Doyle gets this message before he can even make it to work and heads to the school, where he barges into the office and demands to know about his son's well-being. The principal tries to calm him down, assures him that his kids are okay, and proceeds to escort him out. However, determined to see his sons and make sure that they are all right, Doyle runs out into the hallway calling out their names and asking them to come out of their respective classes and see him. The boys hear this and, without asking permission, run out of their class to see their father, who, to their utter shock and fear, is quickly thrown onto the ground and handcuffed by the police. Valerie is soon alerted to the situation, and the police take Doyle into custody, while Gavin joyfully watches on from a distance. When will the toxic back and forth stop?
Ha! You know who I am?
Moments later, Gavin sees a shell-shocked Valerie comforting her terrified sons, and as if suddenly realizing his actions have consequences, once again hates himself for all the pain he caused. Hence, Gavin rushes to the bank to speak to Ron and asks him to help Doyle. However, still frustrated by Doyle's outburst, Ron refuses to even speak with Gavin until he offers to co-sign Doyle's loan, which suddenly prompts him to consider the idea and cooperate with Gavin. At the police station, Doyle is taken to jail, and while he considers his options, a furious Valerie arrives to see him. Before Valerie can even say a word, Doyle, who's desperately hoping to tell her about the chaos of the day that led him there, details everything that happened.
He's been at me all day.
Somebody you've been fighting with.
Yes.
You had a fight with somebody who hit your car, and then you spent the day in...
You believe me?
Yes, thank you. Stop, Doyle. I don't care. Guess what? It's just the kind of thing that always happens to you, and it never happens to me unless a person can be crazy all at once. Fine, great, that's life, but this is not just my life now, or yours. It is the life of 2 children, and I have to protect those 2 children. Is it, Doyle? I mean, is that this guy's fault?
Please let me say goodbye to them.
No! Taking those boys away, and you will never see them again. You will never find us. Do not try to come after us. Do you hear me?
Completely defeated by these words, Doyle sits in jail, once again heartbroken, and gives up, overwhelmed by disappointment. A couple of hours later, Doyle's sponsor posts his bail and gets him out of jail. Relieved and grateful for his help, Doyle expresses his deep gratitude. Then, hoping to explain what happened, Doyle shares everything and proudly adds that despite the overwhelming events of the day, he never took a sip of alcohol.
You broke the contract.
I didn't have a drink.
Well, wow. Thank you for sharing. You didn't have a drink today. What an inspiration.
That's the point, isn't it?
You know, booze isn't really your drug of choice anyway. You're addicted to chaos.
This is too harsh. The man was trying. Meanwhile, an exhausted Gavin returns to his office, where he writes a letter of confession, in which he explains that he lost the original power of appointment, which Simon was coerced into signing at his most vulnerable. Despite appreciating his professionalism and willingness to take responsibility for his actions, Michelle is outraged that Gavin is taking the fall for everything and advises him to include his bosses in the letter. Seemingly surprised by her support and quite opposite attitude to his wife's, Gavin thanks Michelle for understanding him better and steering him in the right direction and goes to see Stephen in his office. There, Gavin shows Stephen the letter, but is shocked to learn that it's redundant, as they have already forged the power of appointment and sent it to the court during his absence. Outraged, Gavin tries to challenge this decision, but a stern Stephen shuts him down, announces that if he wants to continue working there, he must spend a few months in Texas, defending death row prisoners pro bono, which will make the firm look good and come back after Simon's case is closed. Exasperated by this, Gavin returns to his office, where he falls asleep on his desk while trying to figure out what to do. When he wakes up a few minutes later, Gavin is shocked to see the original power of appointment document on his desk and Doyle quietly sitting behind him. Finally facing each other after all the pain they have caused one another, the men address each other politely and calmly.
I have to thank you.
The house.
I understand what you were trying to do, but my wife's moving, she's taking the boys.
Sorry.
I was a horribly unstable father. Valerie says I'll never see him again. Oh well. I'll see him in a year or two, and I'll find a way to be their father again.
Then, after discussing the chaotic events of the day, the men genuinely apologize to one another, and Gavin profusely thanks Doyle for bringing the original document back. Later that night, Gavin meets Cynthia and her parents for dinner, where he boldly shows Stephen the original power of appointment and threatens to file it, knowing it will discredit the forged document and get them in trouble unless he allows him to stay and conduct his pro bono case from this office, and announces he will be taking Doyle's case as his first pro bono case.
Gavin, can we please
And
not do
I think
this?
I would like to be the one to call me to Dad. I'm gonna tell her that you and Walter are gonna give back the $3 million you stole from her grandfather's foundation. I can do this. Can you live there with me? Can you?
Oh, what a kind gesture. Later after dinner, Gavin visits Cynthia at her apartment.
Gavin Bannock. 5 minutes, ma'am. I owe your husband 20. Only asking for 5 with you.